Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon. It's Wednesday, no it's Thursday, September the 18th. Sorry, this is my first live, so I'm kind of winging it a little bit. It's nice to see everybody and welcome to the Emotional Intelligence Blueprint. This webinar is going to be about 45 minutes and then there'll be questions, so please use the chat. Let's get started. The idea of the webinar today is to help you understand about emotional intelligence. Sorry, it's just kind of going a little bit too quickly. We're looking at people from STEM, manufacturing and finance, because that's who I work with, and it's about being overlooked to unstoppable. So let's get started. A little bit about Connect A. We're about helping high-performing professionals kind of go through and simplify complexity so that they can achieve sustainable success. What does that really mean? It means that as you're going through your career in corporate or even as an entrepreneur, things are going to come in and get in the way. You may be passed over for a promotion, or you're starting to doubt yourself. And that's where we come in and help you and support you. We'll give you practical, results-oriented programs that are specifically designed for you. I have a science background, just a little bit about me. I have a science background, so I'm steeped in science, and you'll see sometimes there are maybe references. The reason I've approached it from this point of view is when you're coaching somebody, you need to know where they want to go. Then there's a certain element of strategy, and then there's a science that comes into it in terms of what's getting in the way and the science about how we can help you. So then moving on, what we're going to cover today is why EQ matters. And there's a risk tax that women pay and how we can change that. I'm going to give you some neuroscience basics, how your brain powers through EQ, and how you can overcome barriers by using EQ in action. There's going to be practical tools, the 3R framework and the GHOST methodology, and then we'll use real-world applications and exercises, and then I'll answer your questions. That's just setting the scene for where we're going to go. Okay. What's the risk tax about? Well, it's about when you're making bold moves sometimes as a woman, you have harder scrutiny sometimes. If you're assertive, that's one thing, but if you're overly assertive, you can be seen as aggressive. If you are too focused on the data, you can be seen as just a data person and not good at anything else. When you look at EQ leaders can see a 20% better team performance and resilience. Now, what do I mean by that? When we really focus on how women work and how they think, we can help women to actually be better performers and also improve their resilience at the same time. There's a bit of a balance between resilience and performance. And the reason I focus on women is because A, I know how you think, and B, I've been in corporate and I've struggled through some of these things, which I wish I'd known when I was younger, but I didn't. So now I'm trying to help other people, other women, either younger in their career or as they're going through the career. And just to let you know that EQ integrates the emotion, the cognition, and it enhances decisions under pressure. And I'll explain on the couple of slides in a minute where in the brain we're talking about. But what you can get is you can overcome the biases and lead through the contract losses. By what I mean is when something happens, you will understand that it's what it's about and help to move through it. And then, of course, you'll be able to adapt to market shifts. What do I mean by that? It means you'll be able to adapt to the market as a woman against men. And again, there's no detrimental conversation here. It's just how we think and how things are. And of course, STEM, manufacturing and finance are very male-dominated worlds, women are making it through. But of course, my generation was the first real generation who went to college and then went into business. So we're still seeing that parity of men versus women, but also men just think differently. Women think differently. You know, the book Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus is very true. And that's why I predominantly work with women. I do coach men, but I predominantly work with women because I want to see other women soar. Okay, let's have a look at the brain. Now, I'm a scientist, as I said, and I'm not expert in neuroscience. I've done a lot of neuroscience. So shall we say, 3 main areas of the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system, the amygdala, and the insula. Right, so the prefrontal cortex system is here at the front of the brain, if you can see my mouse moving. This is all about executive function and decision making and planning. It's basically your thinking brain. The limbic system, which is in here in the center of the brain, or rather underneath the prefrontal cortex and the parietal lobe, this is what processes our emotions. It's about motivation and stress, and the whole bit is called the amygdala. Now, stress is really important because these two kind of conflict with each other. If you're thinking emotionally and you're in fight, flight, freeze or fawn, your brain, your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex is not engaged. It's all emotional because the fight, flight is coming through, your cortisol is running through your body and it's causing that emotional reaction. If you see a bear, it's like, whoa, that's going to eat me. And your fight, flight, freeze or fawn comes in. Am I going to run? Am I going to fight it? Or am I going to just stand here and look big? And fawn is kind of a combination. The insula is about self-awareness, empathy and social cognition. Women have a very high self-awareness, empathy and social cognition. Again, it's nothing derogatory. It's about chemistry and about how our brains work. Let's go on to, we'll come back to this if we need to, if there's any questions. But it's about understanding how our own brain works, because the thing between our ears, our brain, is what can help us propel forward, or it can hold us back. We have this constant narrative going on in our head about whether I'm good enough or shall I do this. You're constantly having this conversation, and it doesn't mean to say there's anything wrong with you. Everybody has this conversation because we've got at the back of our brain the subconscious, and then we've got the conscious. The subconscious is very much about history and what's happened in the past, but it doesn't actually analyse. Our prefrontal cortex is where we analyse. As I said, the decision making, the planning. Okay, let's move on. As I said, the 3 key regions are the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex and the insula. We have emotional reactions, and when we have emotional reactions, the amygdala is hijacking the thought responses. Remember I said that you can't kind of do 2 at the same time. It's hijacking your prefrontal cortex. You can't think clearly when your amygdala is hijacked, when you're totally emotional. Have you ever got so upset that you can't think straight? Men and women. And this is where this comes in. The prefrontal cortex is actually not engaged. Your emotional amygdala is hijacking it. And your brain grows through habits. There's a thing called neuroplasticity. Your brain is rewiring all the time. If your emotional side comes in all the time, you're going to wire neurons that actually bring it in all the time. But the good news is, you can develop different habits so that your emotional brain is not hijacking your thinking brain. we can give you daily EQ practice, which will strengthen those neural networks and help you with neuroplasticity. All neuroplasticity means, as I say, is really you're rewiring your brain. When you're a child and you're growing up, you're constantly rewiring your brain as you're learning new things, learning new skills. When you first see your hands and you look at your hands and think, oh, what are they? And then as you start to, your neurons start to grow, and with practice from your parents, this is a hand, this is what it looks like, this is what it does. That's how you start to build your neural networks. And that's important for professionals, professional women, professional men. But again, I'm focused mainly on the women for this presentation. Oh, it's just taken a little while. I apologise. It will come through. But basically, what this is talking about is, we'll move on while this is coming up. The book Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. It's about 4 characters, 2 mice named Sniff and Scurry, and 2 little people named Hem and Haw, and they live in this maze, and they depend on the cheese for happiness and success. But when the cheese suddenly dries out, basically somebody moves my cheese, the mice have to quickly think about how they adapt to the new cheese. And it talks about Sniff. He has self-awareness and he recognises his emotions. And he actually is able to look at new ways of getting cheese. Scurry stays calm under pressure. He's self-regulating like Scurry, and he can find new cheese. Haw has resilient self-regulation, and he can find new cheese, but Hem, of course, is in totally mismanaging his regulations, his emotions, and so he has very difficulty adapting to the fact that somebody's moved his cheese. He keeps going back to the same place each day trying to find his cheese. Let's see if this is working any better. There you go. So you've got Sniff, Scurry, Hem and Haw. And Hem's the one that really struggles in all of this because he just doesn't adapt to new cheese. I'll give you an example. If somebody gets a promotion over you, it could set you off into emotional state. What that does is it stops your prefrontal cortex from working. You're in dysregulation, and you can't think about new potential opportunities. Even though somebody got the promotion I was going for, is there a potential opportunity here? Are there other opportunities, maybe in a different department? Are there other opportunities in different companies? Whenever you're stuck in emotion, in dysregulation, you're not going to be able to make that decision. Your prefrontal cortex is not going to be working. Let's move on a little bit then. Right. So in this kind of slide, we're looking at how other people, how we work. So if you're resilient and you're in self-regulation, your brain is going to be functioning much better, and you're going to be able to go through life thinking things through. But there are going to be some things that are going to trigger your amygdala. Your amygdala is going to be triggered by certain things that it may be, such as somebody talks in a particular way. Your previous manager may have had a particular tone which, when they used it, meant you were going to get more work, or you were going to get chastised, or something big was going to happen. Your brain finds that trigger and remembers that trigger, and it could hijack your amygdala and send you into dysregulation. But you can learn to use your prefrontal cortex and get out of that trigger. When we did a poll in LinkedIn, It was a month ago now. There was quite a few people who struggled just like him. They struggled to get out of the amygdala hijack. And of course, once you get into that, it spirals. Once your amygdala has hijacked you into these emotions, you can spiral and get worse and worse. It's like a cyberkinetic loop. It just keeps going the same way you're going. Right. So how do you do that? How do you get out of that? You can stop that cycle. And it's imperative that you do, especially in your career. But you can use these tips for home as well. You can reframe, and we're going to talk about the 3 R's. You can reframe that setback, and so that you stop your dysregulation in its tracks. And so you can stop that cycle down. How do we do that? Well, there is... Okay, that's different. There are different strategies. So, emotion, EQ enhances emotion and the executive network for connectivity. So basically, when you've got emotional intelligence, i.e. you realise when your self-awareness, your amygdala has been hijacked, you can improve your network and connectivity with others, but you can also improve your decisions. Have you ever heard of a knee-jerk reaction? That's your amygdala has been hijacked and you're going into this knee-jerk reaction, and what that means is you're going to be going into fight or flight. So let's think about self-awareness strategies using the insula to spot bias triggers, and then you can use empathy to build team trust and counter scrutiny. So helping your team by helping them spot bias triggers and helping them build trust and then counter scrutiny. We noticed that 25% of leaders, when they were more emotionally aware, had 25% less burnout and higher innovation. And you can practice self-awareness daily to reduce the bias. So let's have a look at a specific story. Okay. This specific story, let's imagine a manufacturing leader, a woman manufacturing leader, and she's just lost a contract and she feels a little bit stuck because that contract meant the world to her, and she was doing everything she could to get that contract. So what happens, and men do this just as much, but we're just using this reality for a case study. You get into your head, why did I lose that contract? What happened? What did I do wrong? Did I undercharge? Did I overcharge? Did I not explain enough? And you start getting into your head. Now, review is good, but not letting it hijack your prefrontal cortex. Excuse me. So when you're in this emotional state, I've just lost this contract, oh my God, what's it going to mean? All these things coming into your head. What you can use is self-regulation by staying calm and then rallying your team. Now, here's a quick tip. If you find yourself going into fight, flight, freeze or fawn, you can do box breathing, which is you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold for 4. And you do that 3 times. What that does is it calms down your nervous system. It kind of hijacks the whole cortisol response. So if you can breathe and work through that, that will help you an awful lot. what you can then do is working with your team. So you re-engage your prefrontal cortex, the thinking, the planning side. What can we do? Would it be that we could ask for feedback to see exactly why our contract didn't work? What opportunities, other outside opportunities, are there maybe in the same company or with the same group? Did they say, oh, you didn't get the contract this time, but there's a contract coming up which you might be suitable for? That's a really good opportunity. And you can always ask the question. When they reframed the loss as an innovation opportunity in this particular case, they secured a new contract. Why? Because they were open to it. There's a reticular activating system at the back of your brain. The reticular activating system basically filters all the inputs coming in. If you activate your reticular activating system by seeing innovation, your brain says, oh, that's what you want. I'll help you look for new things. And so your prefrontal cortex is fully in power, and it then regulates the stress response. One of the things you can do when you're trying to build self-regulation is you can journal your emotions so that you can see if there's any patterns, especially if something happens that sets you off into dysregulation. Somebody spoke not very nice to me, it set me off in this pattern, or I responded like this. And you'll notice A, what your triggers are, and B, what your response is. And so you can sort of spot the pattern and relate the two. So then you almost relearn by neuroplasticity how to spot the pattern, and as the reframe story next, you recognize it, spot the emotions early. You can usually spot the emotions by somebody said something, you start to get anxious and you'll kind of feel it in your chest or in your throat. These are the usual places it feels. You feel that anxiety starting to build. You're starting fearful. The fight or flight is starting up. The cortisol is starting to run through your body. It's engaging your amygdala and it's disengaging your prefrontal cortex. Once you recognize it, then you shift your perspective. Remember the last case study? They shifted the perspective into it's an innovative opportunity. And they got a different contract. They learned they had feedback and they learned what had actually happened. And then they reframed it into, this is actually an opportunity. It's not a disaster. It's not anything we did wrong. It's an opportunity. It was a learning opportunity. And here we go. We've learned from it where this is what we're going to do. Then you rewire your brain. You build the habits of doing this. Spot the problem, recognize it, reframe, rewire. Now there's a thing you can do with the rewiring. So in this situation, they rewired to this is an innovative problem, an innovative challenge, and they got other contracts. Now you kind of start stacking the evidence for that, for the new, almost due reframed decision. This is not a setback, this is something we needed, this is something to go forward. And then what's the evidence for that? Well, we got a new contract, but we also started looking up other ideas. New ideas started coming through from the team. The team were bonding because we had new ideas coming up. So you can start rewiring your brain in light of that. Okay, let's then move on. So you've got your 3 R's, as we said. You've got recognize. Spot the emotion early. Identify the emotion. Is it fear, frustration, or is it specifically related to change? You engage your insula for self-awareness by reducing your amygdala attack. Remember, the amygdala is emotional. Engage your insula and engage your prefrontal cortex, or that's the process. It will engage your prefrontal cortex. Pause for 10 seconds to name your emotion. I'm anxious. I'm fearful. I'm afraid. And also feel where it is. Is it in your chest or is it in your throat? Now, when you feel something like that, it's not in alignment with who you are. It couldn't be, because otherwise you wouldn't feel it. So you can spot the anxiety and spot the challenges that you're seeing, because you'll feel it as well. But where do you move from here? Step 2, as I said, is reframe. Change that story, your perspective. It's not a failure, it's a learning opportunity. That engages, or really cuts down your dysregulation, and then it starts your prefrontal cortex coming in. What can I learn after this setback, or what can I learn from this? This is what they did in the case study. They learnt from their decisions and their actions, and then they reframed and they rejected proposal, and they saw it as a new proposal and got it into a different company. They reframed what they had, made it better, and it got them a better project, a better contract. Step 3 is, as I've said, is rewire. And how do you do that? You start creating daily habits to strengthen your EQ neural pathways. Neuroplasticity, as I've already said, reinforces new patterns with repetition. So what does that mean? You recognize it, reframe it, start to stack the evidence as to why the new decision is true, and then you journal. When I did this, this is what happened. But when I reframed it, this is what happened. And do it for 5 minutes a day. And that way you'll start to realize that when you reframe, you actually start moving forward. Because if you're in fight, flight, or freeze, you're stuck and you don't know where to go. What do I do? Where do I go? What do I start? How do I do this? And you're going to feel it in your chest and in your throat often. What you can do is do a daily reflection to stay calm during the market shifts. Now, there's a lot happening at the moment. Last week was a particularly interesting week, shall we say. And I'm not being derogatory. It's just framing things as interesting gives them a different view. So I just did it there from it was bad to it was interesting and to looking to the future. Okay, let's have a look at what we can also use. We can use the GHOST methodology. I use this when I'm working with clients for strategy, because when you use GHOST, you look at the goals, you look at the objectives, you look at the strategy, and you look at the tactics. And it kind of takes away the emotional aspect of it. So from your point of view of your team, you can set EQ aligned objectives. So help them lead bold projects. If you're managing or mentoring a group of women, you can help them by helping them lead the bolder projects. You can help them identify emotional barriers, their fears. You remember the risk tax. If I speak up, I'm going to be overturned. People are not going to listen, or people are going to say I'm too aggressive. No, we all have a voice. Women have a voice just as much as men. Sometimes we have to couch it differently. But remember, also being too nice can be detrimental. It's showing that assertiveness and knowing what you're talking about without coming across as screaming in their face or emotional. Remember, keep your amygdala in check. Thinking brain. That's what you use, your thinking brain. Develop a high-level plan. So, how am I going to build alliances with people within my team, within my higher level management? How am I going to build alliances? And then the tactics, it's action steps, daily reframing. When something starts to hit you, notice it, recognize it. reframe it, stack the evidence, and then rewire your brain. That's the main thing coming out of today. Let's give you an example. When you're pitching under pressure, so somebody was trying to get secure funding for a risky innovation. They had the fear of the risk tax. They started to go into self-doubt. Can I do this? Am I the right person? Does my team have the right experience? Do I have the right experience? But what you do is you start building trust with key stakeholders via empathy. Start talking to people in advance before you're going to do the pitch, if it's possible. So if it's an internal pitch, talk to the people and let them know what you're going to be talking about and what to expect. Because then they're already champions when they walk in the room. I don't mean give them the whole presentation, I mean certain aspects, certain bullet points. Practice your 3R daily and rehearse your pitch with calm focus. So if you're trying to secure funding with your internal team, remember, think about what you're trying to achieve, build the stakeholders, the confidence and trust with key stakeholders. If something pops into your head that is starting to derail you, and I use that word deliberately because just like a train is going along nicely and then something happens, a leaf on the train, or also in the UK, or ice or something can derail that whole train. That can happen in life. You can be derailed. Something can happen where you can be set off track. So practice the 3R daily. What came in, what set you into an amygdala storm, really, whereby you started with fight, flight, or freeze, and then calm it down, recognize it, reframe it, and then rewire your brain. So when you're rehearsing your pitch, rehearse it with calm focus over and over again, because again, the reticular activating system will come in and say, oh, we've done this before, it's not a problem. So that when you get in the room, your brain's like, oh, we've done this before. I did this with this presentation, although I always adapt on the go. But that's beside the point. But I still rehearsed it and I still looked at it many times so that I knew what I would potentially say where and how I would improve things. What you can do is map your ghost plan for one goal this week. So if you remember, just stepping back, goal, objective, strategy, tactic. That's your ghost plan. And I can help you do that. That's not a problem. How do you combat workplace bias? Now, this happens often in terms of, I've seen it happen in rooms, in business meetings. I've also seen it in networking meetings, surprisingly enough, where there's a conversation going and then a woman will say something, and really good idea. And it kind of is met with a little bit of crickets. And then a couple of minutes later, a man will say exactly the same thing. And then it's heralded as a great idea. Right, the first thing is for the woman not to get triggered. Okay, it happens. To spot the fact that this may trigger you, it happens, it's not good. It's not good from anybody's point of view necessarily. But one of the things you could do is you could say at that point, thank you for bringing back my idea. I was thinking this, this, and this. I appreciate your insights. So what you're doing is letting people know that it was your idea and that they've maybe enhanced it, and then you can enhance it further. So you're still kind of taking back control. Recognize the bias-driven emotions. So what that could have done is it could have set you off into frustration. Why am I bothering talking? I had exactly a similar event in a networking where I said something, we were discussing something and I said something, And it kind of was, and then a man said exactly the same thing. And the people on my table all recognised, we were all at different tables, all recognised what had just happened. But what I did is I didn't let that put me into frustration. I just there's a book called Let Them. I let them, in terms of it wasn't that critical to me at the time. It wasn't a board meeting. It wasn't something where I was presenting a pitch. So I just let it happen. But I noticed it, and so did a number of other people. What could I have said at that time? Well, thank you, Greg, for reinforcing what I just said. That's really interesting that you picked up on it also. And I was thinking this, and this, and that would then help pull it back to you. It's not a case of owning, it's more standing your ground and standing in your presence. And then you can reframe the opportunity to influence. So on that occasion, like I said, if I'd have gone back and said, thank you, Greg, that was great for potentiating my idea, that's awesome. You can then look at your colleagues and bring them into the conversation. You can build stronger alliances by that, rather than sitting there going, I said that. That gives a different impression to, okay, thank you, Greg, that was really great. And you build better influence with your peers. Like I say, on this particular occasion, it wasn't that detrimental. Okay, then, let's move on to it's going to be a little bit slow, so I'll talk through it. Here are some feedback from the polls. We asked people if, when they got a contract loss or a funding collapse, whether they would be resilient. And the answers came back quite interesting. They didn't necessarily come back as that they would be derailed. Some people showed they would be resilient, and some people showed they had enough self-regulation to stay calm and reframe the growth, which was great. What you can do at this point is, if, say, your contract loss is pause to regulate. Remember, what I was talking about was the box breathing. Do that 3 times. Reframe the loss as an innovation, and then use Ghost to plan the next steps. What this will do is give you faster recovery and new opportunities. As I say, the poll really did give some interesting ideas, and what I'll do is I'll put that back out again, the answers of what we got back. When I do polls in LinkedIn, it really is about gathering information. I'm interested in what people say, I'm interested in the results, because I want to know where people are at and what people are thinking. Here's a quick exercise for you. Recall a recent risk, tax or change moment. Have you got one? Recognize your emotion. Was it fear? Was it excitement? Recognize that emotion, then reframe it to a different thing. Was it an opportunity to grow? If you'd like to, please share in the chat. But I'd like you to take one action step this week, which is, if you reframed it, what are you going to do differently? What can you do in going forward? Because this will activate your neuroplasticity for EQ'd gains, should I say. Okay, let's move on. Here are your key takeaways. EQ is definitely brain-based. It's the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex balance. Remember I said your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex. If your amygdala is hijacking, your prefrontal cortex thinking brain is going to be down. If you can control your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex is going to be thinking. Here's how you can overcome challenges. You can use the 3R, recognize, reframe and rewire. Then you can use Ghost, goals, objectives, strategy, tactics for any risk, tax and setbacks. The impact will be a higher EQ with as we saw by the evidence, 25% less burnout and better teams. If you're managing teams, using this balance and adjusting the balance will help you. If you see it in your teams, you can help them adjust their balance. You can also journal your emotions and map out the ghost and practice 3R daily. These are some of the techniques that you can use. Now let's move on slightly. Here's an opportunity for you. If you've liked what I've said and you appreciate how the emotional brain and the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, are working and how that balance is important, remember the amygdala and the prefrontal thinking brain. The amygdala emotional, prefrontal thinking. If you can adjust that balance, you think more clearly and you can move forward. Remember a train derailing. If you're derailed, it probably means that your emotional brain, your amygdala, has hijacked you. And you're starting to go off and spiral. Potentially. This is not certain, but potentially. So what we've got here is I've developed a program called the Neural Leadership Pathway. And I'm quite excited about this because it's done in 3 different ways. The Catalyst program, which is starting to build your neural foundation, the Innovative program, which is advanced applications, and the Visionary program, which is even more advanced. Right, you can read what they all contain. What I've given you today is a starting point. When I coach people, I help them to handle their emotional brain and their thinking brain. I help you to adapt and pull those all through. In the Neural Foundation course, we'll be looking at these neural fundamentals. Remember, I have a science background, I'm a strategist, and I use neuroscience. So we'll look at the neural fundamentals, some of which we've already covered, but some of the things we'll talk through in more detail. This is only a short presentation. We'll look at what's holding you back. What are the limiting beliefs that are holding you back? I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm not better than any man. And then we'll really help you focus. In the Innovator program, we'll go into more detail in the neuroscience, the strategic neural networks. We'll again bring back the emotional intelligence and look at how you can turn that into collaborative intelligence. And then finally, the 3rd program, Transforming Leadership, will really look at the neural architecture of vision. What do you want? Where do you want to go? We're going to look at advanced resilience, so there'll be different tools, more advanced tools, and we'll look at the organizational neural systems. So what are you going to need to do to keep in with to build and grow within your organization? Each program includes 3 focused neuroscience webinars. They're longer, they're 90 minutes. We've got a Neural Leadership in Action workshop, executive coaching assessments. You get executive coaching as part of this. Neural leadership assessments, neural practical protocols, implementation toolkits. So if you buy all 3 at the same time, you can save 11%, which is a nearly $2,000 value. Okay. You will get one-to-one coaching in this, and you will get support, and we will meet on a weekly basis as we go through the program. This is just a summary of what I was talking about: the Catalyst program, the Innovator program, and the Visionary program. And the complete pathway, if you buy it as one package, is $15,500. That's for a 6-month program. Now, that is coaching weekly if you want it, or bi-weekly, depending on your situation, because of course workload comes into play, so we can decide whether you want weekly or bi-weekly coaching. And then we've talked about this in terms of what you can do next, so let's think about what you do next. You can schedule a complimentary neural leadership strategy session, and what I'll do is I I think there's in my LinkedIn profile, you can actually do that. But I'll put, when I reload this, I'll put a comment so you can schedule a one-to-one consultation. There's also coming up, there's a QR code. We'll discuss your specific leadership challenges. I don't use cookie cutter approach. If it's a team, we'll look at the individuals and the team. If it's an individual, we'll look at the individual. And then we'll explore personalised development recommendations. It says starting October. We've just started, but we're going to we're starting October the 1st. Early registration discounts are going to the end of next week. So make sure you get early registration and you'll get another percentage off. You can download your free EQ leadership checklist, and what I'll do is I'll put this in somewhere in the chat or in the when this posts. Book a coaching session and join our Neural Leadership Advantage newsletter, which is published on LinkedIn every Wednesday. And even if you don't do any of that, commit to the 1-3R and the ghost action this week. Recognize, reframe, and rewire. I'd love to help you, but if it's not for you at this moment in time, that's okay. You can always come back to me, but please use the 3R, recognize, reframe, and then rewire, and then think about your ghost actions in the week. Any final thoughts or any questions? I'm not specifically seeing any questions, but here's one of the common ones. How does EQ help with bias? Well, empathy builds resilience because your integrated neurons reduce reactivity, intelligence improves, and you work on that balance from the amygdala and your prefrontal cortex and adjust the balance. You're going to start reacting differently. Something's going to happen, and instead of going into fight, flight, or freeze, you're going to recognize it, reframe, and then build the neural networks. Okay, this happened. What can I do at this point? What can I do, or what can I say? So, okay, we didn't get that pitch. How can we turn it into something that we can, for the next project? Take away what maybe didn't work, what did work, take the good things that did work and adapt it. Just a final thought. Emotional intelligence is the bridge between emotion and excellence. And this is inspired by the neuroscience. Remember, amygdala versus prefrontal cortex. The balance. How's your balance today? Are you in high flight or freeze? Or are you in thinking mode? Here's a testimonial that you can read. I'll read it out. This was from Sophia. If you haven't yet had a coaching session with Lynn, you are missing out. Candid conversations, informative materials, and way to improve through your career journey, whether targeted or an overall view. Lynn provided me with valuable frameworks that will move me into the next phase of development. I couldn't have asked for a better experience. So if you want that experience, give me a call or put a note. We're coming close to time, but here's the QR code. If you want to book a call with me, put your phone on the camera now, your phone against the screen now, and book a call with me. You can also email me at lynn@connectorstrategy.com or connectastrategy.com. There's my telephone number. Text me and say, if you want to have a call from this, say LinkedIn Live call, or just need to book a call. As I mentioned, what we'll do in that call is we'll really go through what is it you need. So here's a typical coaching. We look at what your wins are. We then really dig down to what your vision is. What do you want? Then we'll work on the strategy, the ghost. I use it from a strategic point of view in your goals, objectives, strategies, tactics. This is what you want. Work that into goals, then work that into objectives, strategies, tactics, and we'll pull that down And as we're going through the ghost framework, what's getting in the way? What's holding you back? What's that voice in your head? What's that emotional intelligence that's causing concern for you? Or that emotional challenge that's causing concern for you? Okay, and then we will work on what's coming in, what's stopping you, and help you move forward. And you'll get an action plan. And we will go over that action plan next time you call. So there's accountability. We've got to 12:50 and this goes to 1 o'clock, but I'm not seeing any particular questions. I'll leave this up for a few more minutes. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please feel free to reach out. It's been a pleasure doing this presentation. I love this work, just so you know, I love this work. It brings together my science, my strategy, and my neuroscience. But what I get most out of it is I help women to go from here to here and start to soar, or continue to soar. You may be well into your path and all of a sudden something happens and you start with what I would call a speed wobble. You start to doubt yourself. That's your amygdala hijacking you. Right, let's nip it in the bud quickly. We'll have a coaching session and then we'll move you on. If you're an executive who is striving, a young executive striving to make it through the ranks, let's start working with you early so that you can start really thinking about how you handle your emotional intelligence and how you move forward into the corporate environment and make your way. I never had a sponsor, a mentor, or a coach until I needed one. And I was already in my own business by then. Had I had a coach when I was starting out in my career, potentially I could have taken a different path, because I used to let my amygdala hijack me. And then, of course, your thinking brain goes out of the window. Once that hijack happens, the amygdala's here and the thinking brain's there. I don't want to see that for any other woman. I want to help you get through that. So remember, there is either you can contact me about one-to-one coaching, or if you're interested in our neural program, Catalyst program, Innovator program, Visionary program, and the Complete Pathway, you can just do one and see how you go, and then just do the other one, see how you go. They all build on one another, and they all include one-to-one coaching. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And as I say, I'm not seeing any questions. This is my first time of doing a live, so let's see how it turns out. But you go out of your comfort zone. Everything you do to grow and learn is going out of your comfort zone. Have a wonderful rest of the day, Thursday, and see you all again soon.